All right, the book I have here today is one of the most famous wealth creation books of all time, Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. Excellent book on wealth creation, so let's get right into it. Robert Kiyosaki wrote this book with the basic premise that as he grew up in Hawaii, he had two dads. He had his biological father, who was highly educated, highly respected in educational circles. He had some high political office type jobs in Hawaii. But although his rich dad was respected and highly educated and highly intelligent, he knew nothing about wealth creation or how to obtain wealth. On the other hand, Mr. Kiyosaki's mentor, someone that he went to start working for when he was very young, was not very educated, but knew how to create wealth and had a wealthy person's mindset. And so much of this book is talking about the difference between a middle-class mindset and a wealthy person's mindset and even a poor person's mindset, and how that makes a difference whether you're rich or poor or in between. Here are some things he talks about. The difference between assets and liabilities. He said rich people spend their time acquiring assets, while poor people and middle-class people tend to waste money on liabilities. For example, Mr. Kiyosaki says some things that you might consider being assets are really liabilities, like your cars, like your house even, because the government taxes and you have to pay insurance and you have to update, and all these things are sucking money out of your wallet. He said the fastest way to make wealth, and Mr. Kiyosaki's a lot about making wealth fast, is to buy and sell businesses. Buy businesses at a low price, build them up, resell them at a higher price. But you want to have things that are going to bring in cash flow for you. He's not scared of debt. He said there's such a thing as good debt and bad debt. Bad debt is like a loan on your car, even your house, that's costing you money. You know, the compound interest working against you. But he said rich people understand that debt, good debt that brings in what he calls cash flow, allows you to earn a lot more money. For example, if I take out a mortgage on a house that's my own house, I'm going to live in it and I'm paying the compound interest. It's going to cost me a lot of money. But if I take out a mortgage on a house for a few months while I fix it up and I sell it for a huge profit, that's using debt to make more money, create more cash flow. So he talks about the difference of that there's good debt and bad debt. He talks about your mind as being your greatest asset. He talks about the difference of mindset of someone who's like middle class or poor, which is basically an employee mindset. Most of these people work for other people and they just get what they can get. And really the government taxes employees far more than people who own big businesses and things like that, than the corporate tax rate. So he's talking about, poor people and middle-class people are often partners with the government, and the government takes a lot, and even people who are self-employed or have small businesses really get beat up by their tax system as well. He said, there are things you can do, creating big businesses, taking advantages of tax loopholes to make money. He talks about that in this book a little bit. He talks about it more in his second book, or another one of his books, Cash Flow Quadrant, which is an excellent book as well. Maybe we'll review that later. He said a rich person is always looking for opportunities, while his poor dad was always making excuses and complaining. Rich people his rich dad was always trying to produce and give more than is expected, produce more than is expected, while his poor dad was just doing kind of the average amount. He said that his rich dad was always looking to invest more and consume less. Now, he may have been consuming more because he was rich. He may have had luxury cars, things like that. But it was such a smaller percentage of his overall cash flow that he could do that. He said if you want luxuries, you should pay for them with your assets. That your extra income should come from assets, and then you can buy luxury things. He said rich people are always hanging out with other rich people because they want that mindset. He says poor and middle class people hang out with poor and middle class people and they just get the same. He said you should observe your emotions about money and make sure that money is not pulling you, dragging you down to your emotions, so you can have a clear head. And he said also you should look to create your own money. Start your own business, make your own opportunities, and not rely on others to do this for you. So that's a pretty brief summary, but it's an excellent book, and I highly recommend it. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki.